And blessed to be part of your day. Locked and loaded, stacked and packed, ready to go. Kevin Miller in the morning on 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Coming up, we're going to speak to Pro-Life Max and Liberty Linda. Before that, though, our great friend Dr. Lamero joins us now. Dr. Lamero, good to have you back.
Oh, it's great to be back with you. I love your show.
Love having you on. So we take a look at Michael Cohen. You're an optimist. Your thoughts on how compelling or perhaps how disingenuous his testimony was last week?
Well, I don't really put much stock in it. I mean, he sort of flip-flops all around with his stories, and basically he's been convicted for lying to Congress, so I don't think he's actually a great source for Congress to go look for new data. But the stories, just like with other far-left people associated with the Democratic Party and anti-Trump, they make claims that Trump has done something corrupt or he's done something to abuse his power or he's done something somewhere, like talk to the Russians, and there's no data behind anything. I mean, it's talk to imply he's a bad person because they don't want to reelect him or they want to impeach him, but there's never any data. And I think Michael Cohen's just a whole bunch of, stories that don't have any factual basis.
Well,
I think he's trying to get out of jail quicker, maybe.
Sure, but back to your point when you're saying that there's no factual basis. When the guy opens up, he's a racist, he's a con man, he's this. Talking about the president of the United States who's out of the country representing us at a summit, there can be no good coming from those, again, factless statements.
Yeah, absolutely. And he keeps getting caught in lies. He made in his recent testimony the statement that he's never sought a pardon from the president, yet we find out from yesterday from his lawyer that his lawyer did approach the president's lawyers and said that he was interested in a pardon. So the stories just don't match up, and isn't it time to just settle back and move on and stop criticizing the president when they have no data?
But that's what we're up against. And Dr. Lamero, by the way, if people want to get a hold of you and get the real news, the real story about the real America, how can they do that?
Well, my website is greatnewsforamerica.com, and it has about, I think, 160 web pages on it. I've got a lot of information over the years that has accumulated, and I never cleaned it out. We just add to it. But no, it's good information and doesn't go out of style. For example, a couple decades ago, I wrote something that was called the 10 Laws for Winning Presidential Elections, which people who run for president actually read, and some of them follow it, and the people who follow it do better.
Indeed.
That's honest.
Now, the last time we had you on, you said Michelle Obama will be the next president of the United States.
She was the early leader in this race, and we have not done an update to the model to see who the latest one is. We have, Governor Hickenlooper, former governor of Colorado, in the race. We have some people saying they're not running. Hillary said she's not running, but on the other hand, there's still indications she's running. So I think she's still on my list of people running, and we try to do the best we can this early, but this is still very early to pick the winner because there are a lot of things that can happen, and we've got about almost nearly 40 people potentially running on the Democratic Party side. So it's pretty hard to pick a winner with 40 horses,
Well, how do you see the Republicans' chances to get back Congress, to get back the House?
Oh, very good. I think it's right now 60-40, 60% probability that they're going to take back the House. The reason for that, believe it or not, is that the reason they lost in November of 2018 was because the Republicans, the voters, the electorate, the conservatives who make up a lot of the party, essentially sat home on the incumbents. In other words, they would not do anything to help them because they felt the incumbent Republicans, the establishment Republicans, the rhinos, chose to walk away from Donald Trump. They weren't helping Trump. I mean, let's face it, Obamacare, the wall, a lot of these things, when the Republicans had control of the House, they didn't do anything. They sat on their hands. And I remember hearing lots of people saying there's going to be a price to be paid in 2018, and the price was the loss of the House. But the good news for the Republicans is that an awful lot of the seats that were taken over by socialists are going to flip because they don't like socialists even more than they didn't like establishment Republicans.
Dr. Lamero joining us here. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. What else are we looking at as far as your prognostications? We're wondering about the Mueller report. We're wondering about all these investigations. Now you have Jerry Nadler and the House Oversight Committee, as well as the usual suspects, saying that they want to subpoena 81 people associated with the president?
That's right. Different organizations, different entities, or just plain individuals, like Mike Pence, who's apparently going to be received a letter and is going to receive a subpoena if he doesn't show up. Well, I think the Democrats are an overkill. The Mueller report was the Democrats' attempt to get Trump for doing something so they can say that he wasn't legitimate and impeach him. And failing to impeach him, they wanted to tarnish his record so he wouldn't be reelected. Well, apparently, the grand jury ends, I think, either this Friday or next Friday, and associated with Mueller. And if they're going to do any indictments, if they want to indict anyone else, for whatever they can come up with, it'll have to be done probably on Friday of this week or next week. So I think you'll probably see it by next week at the very latest. So I do think the Mueller report is just about to come out. I think the report is going to say, that's it. We found a couple of Russian trolls that were, doing some Facebook pages and things like and ads and things, but we don't really have anything on Trump-Russian collusion. And of course, we overlooked. They won't say this. They overlooked the obvious Clinton campaign Russian collusion because she's the one who hired DPS. They hired a former spy from Great Britain, Russian spy, and the report was about, Russian things that happened there. And so it was an attempt to collude, in a sense, and hurt Trump. And then this investigation, in some ways, might be a smokescreen to protect Clinton and her associates. I also think, by way of prediction, that once Mueller's effort is shut down, nothing's happened, I think Andy Barr, who I believe is a very ethical person, is going to come out and appoint another prosecutor to go after many things that have been up in the air for years about Hillary's emails and letting her off the hook. And that's not right in the United States. Everybody has to follow the rule of law, even Hillary Clinton.
Dr. Lamero, your website one more time, please, sir.
It's Great News for America, all one word, .com. My latest book is More Great News for America, and I have another book in process, which I hope will be out in a few more months.
All right, Dr. Lamero, you stay out of trouble. Thank you, sir.
I'll try. You too.
Bye-bye. Kevin Miller in the morning, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Obviously, we love hearing from you, the place to be heard. Each and every morning, of course, all day long, Glenn Beck, Sean Hannity, Dave Ramsey, Lars Larson, you name it, we've got it. You've all been very patient. Let's get to the phones. Max in Garden City. He wants to talk about Marsy's Law on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Max.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. I just finished reading Marsy's Law. I went to CaliforniaState.gov thing. Marsy's Law really is a gateway to a police state. I'm reading one part of it right here. And the law would amend our Constitution to refuse an interview, deposition, or discovery request by the defendant's attorney, or any other person acting on behalf of the defendant. That's scary. That means that if I accuse you of a crime, Kevin, under Marsy's Law, you can refuse my lawyers the right to gather evidence. The state is free to do what they want, but the discovery team and the people doing the evidence gathering on your behalf have their hands tied. Is that interesting?
It is. Now, Max, we have a lot of people that are monitoring this program at this hour, even as we speak, that are in favor of Marsy's Law. What would you like to say to them and to tell them why they're wrong? Of course, they're going to disagree with you, but in other words, lay out the challenge.
Okay, folks, listen. This is really straightforward as can be. Marcy's Law, read the law. Stop listening to sound bites and little whiny interviews on the radio. Read for yourself. Another thing Marcy Law says is that, first of all, the victim has the right to basically strangle the defense. So if Kevin beats me up and they go to court and I'm the victim here, I can stop Kevin's lawyers from gathering any evidence to prove that he just might have the presumption of innocence. The next thing that hit me was it says that the victims have an increased right to basically help in the sentencing of a convicted criminal. Now, when last I heard, criminals were to be convicted based on the impartial, knowledgeable decision of the judge. Now, sentencing is almost left in the hands of the victim or relatives. Well, my second cousin was shot and is dead. My second cousin, I think you should. Victims have too many rights under Marcy's Law. We are a victim mentality and a victim nation. If you let this kind of garbage become law, especially the way they want to write it into Idaho's Constitution, guys, that's a police state. You're under arrest. You are guilty. I say you're guilty. You have no right to a defense. We presume you're guilty. Is that what you want, people? Is that really what you want? Show me your papers. Put a swastika.
But isn't there a difference between Marcy's Law and red flag laws?
Well, red flag laws have hidden agendas, back doors, if you will. Now, under Marcy's Law, I'm looking right at it, I don't see any really viable way that they can twist this law to say, come into your house and get your gun. But I do see ways how they can accuse you, and like in Russia, Syria, Iran, Egypt, they can presume you guilty. The presumption of innocence is lost here because the presumed victims are given virtually carte blanche in gathering evidence, in conducting the trial, and in helping decide sentencing. I don't think the victims, survivors, or whoever have any right in the courtroom at all, ever, period.
You're saying you're saying survivors and victims have no rights.
They have no right to be in the courtroom presenting anything that would cause the judge not to have an unbiased, impartial opinion.
You know, really, though, our judges, I mean, aren't we, let's be brutally clear here. Who's unbiased? Who's impartial? Maybe a computer, but then you can program it to have a bias.
But look at how it increases and really empowers bias for the judge to sit and listen to. In one case, I was reading about 15 people. Each came up, took 5 to 10 minutes each, and told them how their lives were ruined and how everything blah, 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 blah. And the judge went beyond the sentencing guidelines because she was so moved by the testimonies, and all this did was result in the whole thing being overturned on appeal because of cruel and unusual punishment. Judges are people, too.
Well, that's the point, Max. Thank you for the call. Pro-Life joins us now. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Pro-Life.
Yeah, suppose we had right now the whole border with a great big wall so nobody could get over the wall. But if it's still, we would have a terrible illegal immigration problem, because what's happening right now is people come right to the border gate, to the turnstile like they were talking about a little while ago, and they yell amnesty. And according to our law, you're supposed to let the person in, give them an attorney.
Right, though they say they're seeking asylum. And you know who brought that one to the forefront? You know who found that loophole? You know who told them to do it?
Yeah, probably Obama.
It was former President Obama that did that. That was the dreaded loophole. And here's one thing, and I don't mean to interrupt. Why didn't the Republican Congress close that loophole when they had both the House and the Senate and the presidency for the first 2 years of the Trump administration?
Yeah, I know. You're exactly. And then if the woman's pregnant and she'd come over here and have a baby, then she has the baby on U.S. soil. That baby is a U.S. citizen.
Baby, baby, baby.
Right, and then chain migration after following that baby. If we don't solve those two things, a wall isn't any good. And 99%, some percent of those people that are asking for amnesty and asking for, that they need.
Right, they're saying they claim asylum. So instead of having to prove asylum, we have to prove that they don't need asylum.
Right.
And while they're here, they're living at the Ritz.
Right, and all the asylum requests have to go to the consulate or the embassy of the country of the person of origin. They don't come to the border gate. That has to stop. Now, President Trump is going to get impeached sooner or later, and they'll wait right up until about the time of the election.
You're predicting impeachment?
Yeah, of course.
Wow.
And he needs to go after it right now, invite impeachment for closing down the border and stopping the amnesty BS and the babies born on the soil. And for defending the border, that's a good reason to get impeached. Now, if he was a really good president, he'd say, listen, I'm going to stop all the baby murder in America. And then he could really get impeached because, Roe v. Wade is not
I think
law.
you just like impeachment. I think you like the word impeachment.
No, I like a big showdown on what's really right. And that's going to be between Congress and the president because the courts, they never get it right.
Pro-Life, thank you for the call. KIDO Talk Radio, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Joining us now from Utah, Liberty Linda on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Liberty Linda.
Yeah, good morning, Kevin. I'm trying to go up to Canada. It's taken over a month to get all the paperwork together. So and then they just walk across the border or so anyway, it's crazy, Kevin, what's going on. So we need to have a license plate on our cars that says, listen to the Kevin Miller Show with 3 little puppies on it. And I would go for that.
Oh, that would be great. What do you make of these license plates, though?
It'd be so cute. Oh, I don't know. You're crazy. So let's have yours. I'd much rather see yours with 3 little puppies on it and give us a little warmth in us when we see one. How about that?
That would be great.
Yeah, I think so too. And what day we're going to have Tom Munns on the show to talk about, the Constitutional Convention, and we are on a precipice of throwing it out if we had that. What people don't understand is that, yes, the conservatives can change it, but the Democrats can get in there and change it as well, and they'll throw everything out. And that's what I'm worried about. So just really worried about that, Kevin. We don't want the Dems to get in there and throw everything out. Then we won't have a Constitution.
Good point, Liberty Linda. Thank you.
Well, yeah, that's my worry. Okay. Thank you, Kevin.
All right, Liberty Linda. God bless.
You as well. Huh? Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Coming up, Brian in Meridian. Talking more about Marsy's Law. We'll get into it next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. We go to Brian in Meridian with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Brian.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. We have to quit talking about Marsy's Law as Marsy's Law. The way they're doing it here in Idaho, it's Marsy's constitutional amendment. And I have to disagree with Max about the gateway to a red flag law through the Marsy's constitutional amendment. And the reason for that is that if you look at the language, it says that the victim has a reasonable right to protection. And this is, like Max said, this is prior to any due process. So, for example, if I accuse you of, assault, whether or not you've ever gone to court, been arrested, been anything in the legal system, if there's a red flag law that is enacted after the constitutional amendment is passed under the guise of reasonable protection to the victim, because then the legislature can say, we need to enact the red flag law because the victim deserves the reasonable protection from these potential criminals if they have firearms. You follow me?
Oh, no, I agree with you on that. I'd
like to hear what Max says about that because he says that he doesn't think that's a gateway. I think it's absolutely a gateway for that to happen.
Well, thankfully, we've got a lot of folks like Max and the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance that are holding everybody accountable.
Yeah, but are they really? I mean, that passed 25-9 in the Senate.
got
and
derailed
it was
in the House.
Sponsored by a bunch of Republicans, including my own.
No, I'm with you, Brian.
Winder in the Senate, and I forget who my guys are in off the top of my head in the House, but they were co-sponsors.
I don't know what else to say, Brian. I think, again, back to the point, if it hadn't been for the folks rallying people, it would have gotten through the House, but it didn't. That's why you have Greg Pruitt and those folks doing their darndest to hold them accountable. And now it's back to committee.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's great. Great news.
No worries.
I missed that part.
No worries.
Appreciate it.
Hey, Brian, you take care. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Yeah, it's gone back to committee. Let's get you to traffic and weather together. KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Kevin Miller in the morning. Hello, Dave.
Good morning, Kevin. KIDO Talk Radio traffic. Working minor fender bender eastbound at 33. We have another event eastbound.
Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Taking your calls on the border issue. What happened to Secretary of Homeland Security Kristen Nielsen? If you missed it, we'll share that with you thanks to our friends at Fox News. Georgia looking to pass a bill curbing abortion. We'll get to that as well. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. We will take your calls on the issues that matter to you. And speaking of which, don't forget the KIDO Talk Radio newsletter. It's easy. It's simple. Unlike all the little jabronis, we don't spam you all the time. You get it twice a week. Some of the stories that we talk about here, some of the other stories that are, pretty popular locally if you're new to the area or would like to get more information, you can always sign up for the KIDO Talk Radio app as well. More information on our website. Joining us now from New York, Tanya J. Powers to talk about R. Kelly. Oh, my. Good morning.
Good morning.
What was that guy thinking?
I think that's probably been asked at least a couple dozen times in the last, couple of decades of the things that, we've heard about him over the years. Right now, he is sitting in jail. He is there because of child support. He apparently went to court yesterday expecting to, pay some of his child support. He was prepared to pay $50 or $60,000. He owes about $161,000, and the judge in the case said that he needed to pay the entire thing. He said he wasn't able to do that because he hasn't been able to work. So they put him in jail and said that he can't be released until he pays the entire amount. He has another hearing on March 13th, so that's kind of where he is right now. By the way, he apparently was in jail again last month as well, in February. He was arrested there. He is, of course, making headlines now because, in January we had the Lifetime series Surviving R. Kelly, the documentary that, alleged that he held women captive and they were in a cult. And, of course, this week's interview that he did with CBS, that part of it has already aired and shows him getting extremely upset with Gayle King, who was doing the interview, and, yelling at the camera. And, this went on for a while.
Yeah, you just wonder, why do people just yell at the camera? They always pick on the camera guy. You ever notice that?
Yeah, that's true. That is something I've worked in TV news before, and that is absolutely the case.
And the poor camera guy, they're just doing their job. But, I'm going to get that camera out of my face. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And you're thinking, what really did the camera guy do to deserve this? Nothing.
They're probably wondering the same thing when they go home in the evening too.
Yeah,
like why did I do this job?
Right. What did I sign up for? So back to Mr. Kelly. These are troubling reports. Certainly, and I don't know if you've caught any of the Leaving Neverland documentary, but I've
not yet.
I've watched the first part of it, and boy, what Michael Jackson was doing to these kids, and then you throw in R. Kelly. It doesn't say a lot, I guess, about the state of things, and that Mr. Kelly gets all worked up, and now he's in jail. We talk about the Me Too, but certainly we need more accountability in our lives.
And by the way, more of that interview is being aired today. There is apparently a piece of it with his girlfriends who, he says the parents, he has said all these things that are just kind of like beg more questions, honestly. And one of them was that the parents had given their daughters to him, and, he's blaming the parents, what kind of parents would do this, and the parents are saying, no, that's not what happened. Apparently these two women are, part of this interview that they're going to be airing as well. I think they spoke for something like 80 minutes total, all of this, which is a really long time, actually, when you're doing an interview.
Indeed, but you go back to, so it was kind of like signing over a car or something? They just signed them over? That's what
I'm
he's
not really
alleging.
sure what he says was, took place, how this, transaction, as he calls it, happened. The parents of one of the girls says they never asked for or received money from him. They said they've not spoken to their daughter in a couple of years, and they've asked him to make her available to talk to them. It's just kind of, this all, of course, after he was, acquitted in 2008 on child porn charges. There have been other allegations that have come up in the last couple of decades. This is not the first time, by any stretch that we've heard stories like this.
Kind of ruins you every time you want to hear that I Believe I Can Fly song.
Yeah, it definitely puts his music in a whole different light.
And then you have the fallout over Michael Jackson. You have people in Europe saying they're not going to play his music anymore.
Yeah.
And, as a child of that time, you, madam, probably more so than me. I was more, I was more the Captain and Tennille, if you will. However, you take a look at, the gift of Michael Jackson and his dancing, his movement, the cultural phenomena that he was, and then having this secret, and these two now in their, I think, 30s, early 30s, men coming out and graphically describing what happened to them. And we always used to joke about that, but clearly troubling things with two individuals. How can you define that? I'm sure you were a Michael Jackson fan. A lot of people still are. And his tragic death has, pumped up his sales of his albums and such. Just shocking what went on.
Yeah, and can you believe that this year will mark the 10th year that he has been gone? It's really kind of hard to believe that, it's been that long. But you're right, the fact that this new, HBO piece, the two-parter, I guess I haven't seen it yet, but I plan to. It's definitely got a lot of people talking about it, and I was kind of surprised that, radio stations had decided not to play, or some of them had decided not to play his music. I don't think that's, widespread by any stretch, but, remains to be seen.
Well, and then you have the Jackson family denying the allegations,
Yeah.
going to sue HBO and these two individuals. But based on the first 2 hours and their rather graphic descriptions of what happened and what occurred, and two little boys from different areas basically having the same story, I think it's something that people need to see just to really understand that whole situation. It's tough to get out of this segment, but, again, what can we learn from it is, if you're visiting from Australia and Michael Jackson says, hey, I want you to go to the Grand Canyon, I'm going to keep your 7-year-old son for a while, it's probably not best to leave your kid alone with Michael Jackson.
No, I would probably have said no as well. That would have been my first instinct. I don't care who you are.
Sure. No, it's just, again, it takes us back to a different time. Tanya J. Powers, I'll be interested to get your take on it once you take a look at it. I know you're busy, the skyscrapers and all those things. You don't have time for the watching the shows, but maybe one day, maybe we could say that's, part of your show prep as our political expert.
Well, of course, and I'm just wondering how you think the skyscrapers are keeping me busy, but we can talk about that next time.
Forget it, he's rolling. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thanks.
Tanya J. Powers joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning here. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So, what's going on in the state of Idaho? Well, as you heard, we're going to be debating Medicaid expansion, whether or not there should be work requirements. But here's something that I find rather unique. Thankfully, we've passed legislation, no, not to repeal the grocery tax. And by the way, anyone who disagrees with me on this, is welcome, instead of calling Cindy or Linda or sending me an email, which is great because we read it for entertainment purposes only, is welcome to call in, and you'll get the same treatment as Max or Tea Party Bob or some of our other contributors to the program. We like it when people disagree. At 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And it's just marvelous to me that, well, not marvelous, it's just surprising to me that there are people that, I mean, there's only been 3, that are saying that we don't need to repeal the grocery tax. I think that's a no-brainer. And, okay, let's say I'm wrong, which wouldn't be the first time. Then what do you say to all the politicians that promised to repeal the grocery tax when they ran for office? See, to me, it's more of a question of keeping your word, right? You know what your parents used to teach you? You're only as good as your word. But what does that say if our politicians, our elected officials, don't keep their word and we don't hold them accountable for that? That's just one thought. Another thought is we've just passed legislation to protect pets. No, we haven't strengthened our animal cruelty laws in the Gem State, but we did pass a license plate that says pet friendly. How about that? There we go. That will benefit the Idaho Humane Society, right? So we have a picture of a dog and a cat, pet friendly, because we don't want to discriminate saying that we're pro dog or pro cat, right? So we've passed that. It's taken years for this to happen. Again, the Idaho Humane Society gets this, and they do a lot of good work there. Of course, there are other great organizations. Meridian Canine Rescue. You've got the McPaws. You've got the Old Canyon County Animal Shelter, West Valley Humane Society. And I love working with those rescue groups. They really do God's work. But now we're looking at another specialty plate. This is a good one. It's designed to stop hate in Idaho. And the name on the plate would say, Idaho, too great to hate. And it's sponsored by Chuck Winder of Boise, although I think he's Meridian, right? I think he's my guy in Meridian, or our guy in Meridian, or your guy in Meridian. Sherry Buckner Webb, Democrat of Boise. They brought in a late entry bill to the Senate State Affairs Committee. See, here's what I don't get, and this tells you that politics make strange bedfellows. And I don't mean anything more than that. You had Sherry Buckner Webb, who just got the Idaho Woman of the Year award at from the Idaho Business Journal Review, who, 5 years ago, when Chuck Winder was passing that pro-life legislation, ripped him on MSNBC. And now they're working together. It proves that, I suppose, politicians don't hold grudges. So their point being that if you pass this legislation that gives us another specialty plate, which I find distracting and annoying, but that's my own peccadillo, that it's going to send a message against the hate groups. It's going to send the message against the Ku Klux Klan. Senator Winder told the committee, there are people in the world that hate. Now, really, if you hate, is a plate going to make a difference? You know, we go from Aquaman to Lawrence of Arabia with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Lawrence.
Yes, Kevin, I didn't know if you were aware of the posters some of these schools are putting up now. It says, do not discriminate against other cultures. Well, my wife, she demanded to be able to practice her culture on our son. They Skyped his genitals for 3 years. And anyway, local detective says that's a cultural thing. She threatened to fly back to Vietnam to birth to our child if I did not sign the affidavit of support for parents to migrate here. I went to the local INS office, said that she had a perfect right to bring them here. I have absolutely no say about who is living in my house and what my kids can be subjected to. INS office says, oh, it's a gray area. They don't give a rip.
Kind of lost on this one.
Well, I signed the affidavit of support. so they could migrate here. If I didn't sign it, she was going to go back to Vietnam, give birth to our child there, and give our child to her mother to raise.
Well, how long did you know your wife before you married her?
Well, I spent probably 6 months over there.
The bait and switch.
Yeah, well, the whole thing's been about money. The first domestic violence attack took place 3 days after there was a demand for $1,000 unconditionally. None of my business to where it was going. It was going to her parents, I found out later. And basically, people from other countries can come here, use extortionary tactics to get their relatives over here, and INS says it's a gray area. And, what American citizens can be subjected to here from foreign entities is ridiculous.
You're right. And Lawrence of Arabia, sorry to hear about that. Perhaps next time, marry American. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. So here we go, before we get to traffic and weather together, 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Would you be in favor of a bill stopping the hate? That's right, 2 lawmakers, 1 conservative, 1 Democrat, saying they've come up with a bill that would give us another specialty plate. Idaho, stop the hate. And they believe that there are groups like the Aryan Nations, the Ku Klux Klan, that are here in Idaho. It's a statement about the belief in Idaho that we are a caring state, that we protect the rights of others, according to Senator Winder, who brought this up in the committee. Now, remember, to me, my opinion, this is like a gun-free zone, right? A gun-free zone. You post a gun-free zone and you hope and pray that the bad people do not attack. And by attacking, I mean bringing their guns and harming people. By having a specialty plate, stop the hate. See, to me, maybe I'm a curmudgeon, maybe I'm this. I just think, gosh, do we have to be so politically correct? I mean, really? A license plate is going to be that much of a difference? I'd rather see real legislation. You know, yesterday we had on, Representative Vanderwood, who said this is the biggest challenge our state could face. We could bankrupt the state of Idaho with Medicaid expansion. We have ignored the will of the people with the grocery tax repeal. We are looking at specialty plates and stopping the hate. I just don't think a license plate saying stop the hate. And I think it could be misconstrued that if people of conservative ilk, like you, like me, like others, and all of a sudden we express our thoughts and say the devious little libs, if we say conservatism stands for this, who's to say that's not hate? Who's to say that's not inappropriate? And by the way, how many of us actually spend big money for a specialty plate? The normal plates cost enough as it is. With due respect to both legislators, I'd rather see the time, the effort, the energy go to something else. To me, that sounds like something you'd see in California or Oregon. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller in the morning on 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Time to get you to work safely and on time. And I'm Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Coming up next, a Utah law. You think we have issues here in Utah? They're going to let you marry your cousin. No, we're not talking about insert your favorite stereotypical southern state here. Apparently, Utah is getting ready to allow people to marry their cousins. Breaking news along with the Stop the Hate license plate. You know, it's very simple. You just put it on a license plate and people will stop hating, right? If only the world were that simple.